tree. The best tree to use is a sugar maple. Nice rounded top, should be at least 5 inches in diameter at the bottom. There are several species of maple in New York State. All can be used for making syrup, maple syrup. The best is the sugar maple.
For every 5 inches of diameter of a tree, you can put one more little spigot in it to draw sap out of.
Any kind of maple tree can be used. This is a swamp or silver maple. The problem is you have to use more sap to get the same amount of syrup. The sugar maple, you need less sap to make the maple syrup from. In the past, Indians used birch. You can use almost any kind of tree, but you have to boil away a lot more sap from different varieties. That's why the sugar maple is used, because it takes less work to get the syrup.
Hopefully the farmer we're going to go and visit will help us in identifying how to identify the sugar maple trees. And that they're generally it's done by bark and the shape of the tree. The one thing about the silver maple tree is it's a very fast grower, and that's why it's called a swamp maple, because it grows so fast and doesn't produce a very high sugar content, the sap. And this is fade out.
So how do you make maple syrup in New York? Well, first of all, you need a lot of maple trees. If you have a woods and you know which trees are maple, you tap those trees that are maple trees. It's known as a sugar bush because you have those trees filled with the highest content of sugar and a lot of maple trees. You can see looking around that not every tree is tapped for sugar. We'll show you a close-up to see how the maple syrup makers get that sap. You can see the trail off into the woods the farmer takes with his tractor to collect the syrup or the sap before he makes it into syrup. Let's take a closer look to see how the sap is taken out of each tree. Started?
Yes, start.
This is a maple tree. Along about February, March, and the beginning of April, the farmer comes out and puts a spigot, pounds it right in with a hammer into the tree. It's not in the heartwood, it's out in the sapwood. It acts like a faucet, and you can see the sap is dripping right out of the tree. In order for this to happen, you have to have cold nights when the sap goes back down into the roots and warm days above freezing. You'll remember freezing is 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees centigrade. So we need nights below 32 degrees and above 32 degrees during the day. If you have a nice sunny day like we have today, the sap is running up all the way to the branches, bringing the life back into the tree for the spring and summer. As it runs, this acts like a spigot. The sap is drained out into the bucket. The bucket is held onto the tree and the spigot so that all the sap can be collected, drop by drop. Not easy to get out. The spigot is in, the bucket's put to collect the sap. What do you think this cover is on top of the bucket? You're right, you don't want any trees, leaves, or debris, pollution, anything else to fall into the sap. So it has a cover to keep the sap pure.
And if it rains or snows, you don't want a lot of extra liquid to boil away.
No more water in there than necessary because all this liquid has to be boiled down into the syrup. A tree this size, let's see, how big across? 8, 12, maybe 16 inches in diameter, could probably have up to 3 buckets or spigots hanging on it. The best side to use is the south-facing side of the tree where the sun shines on it in the morning, so that that side of the tree warms up and the sap flows more freely. You'll get most of your sap on the south side of the tree. Lawton sugar bush here, you can see all the trees around, and you'll notice, or I'll tell you, this is the south side of the tree. Both of these buckets are facing south. They're both dripping. It's 6 o'clock in the evening. The sap is still running. Now, what's this farmer going to do next year? Is he going to put a bucket in the exact same place because it's facing south? No. Once you put that spigot in, it does kill part of the tree inside for about a foot up and 4 to 5 inches deep. So next year, maybe Mr. Lawton's going to put his spigot over here, another spot. As the tree goes older, and this tree is maybe 30 years old, it will get larger and he will have to move that spigot each year. And eventually he's going to have to use the north side of the tree. He'll still get sap. The tree won't die. It forms a protective healing around that section of wood. Just one section of wood will die. And as the tree grows larger, that section of wood eventually becomes the heartwood of the tree, and new layers of new growth are added. You know, one ring each year. So that, let's say in 30 years, he's going to have another section this wide on this tree he could tap in the same place, because the dead wood's going to be in the middle, in the heartwood. And you know, the heartwood is dead wood anyway. Every tree in the very middle is the dead wood of the tree. So the most living part of the tree is toward the outside. It has the protective bark, but the spigot's put in 2 to 3 inches inside of that protective bark. Through this sugar bush. These deep ruts. Why do we have deep ruts? Well, I told you earlier, it was April 5th, I think. It's still early spring. The ground has thawed, but when you drive a tractor through this thawed woodland, what happens? It's muddy, the tractor sinks in. You'll notice there are no leaves on the trees yet. Once the leaves start coming out, the sap stops running. It's already up into the leaves, in the branches. So now is the time of the year when the sap runs up during the day, runs back down at night into the root system. Road to Lawton's Jersey farm. Jerseys are the type of cows they raise for milk. Their main source of income is from producing milk for the grocery store. This time of the year, though, they make maple syrup. This is the shape of the maple leaf. That's one of the ways in the summer they can tell which trees to tap. The sugar house. You know what all that smoke is coming out of that house? Well, it's the steam. That's all the water you have to boil away in order to make maple syrup. There's going to be a steamy inside of this house, but that's what's necessary. Boil all that sap down till all you have is syrup.
It's one of the Lawtons just limped through the picture. We got here just in time to catch them gathering some of the sap. One of the local boys helping the Lawtons gather the sap and boiling it down. You see all the sap that he's pouring in. You need a tractor to get through these woods and the soft ground. There, see that water coming out? That's got a little bit of sap in it. They'll keep themselves busy pretty much of the night to boil this all down. Just not yet, not yet. I haven't turned it on yet.
It's blinking.
Oh, it is too going. Pardon me. It wasn't supposed to be.
This is Tim Lawton, one of the maple syrup makers. We're going to ask him how he can tell what tree to tap.
Only sugar maples are tapped, and they have to be about a foot in diameter.
Okay, we're going again. I'm going to zoom in on that, the young maple.
So how do you tell whether this is a maple tree or not?
Well, you can tell by the bark, how the roughness of the bark and the leaves that they have on them the year before.
Okay, now we got a different example over here. This is a
Elm.
this one's an elm, and we've got one other one over here. Swing around, don't get dizzy on me. Okay, there, that is a big tree, and look at how deep and rough this. Put your hand up there. Oh, see how deep the grooves are in that? And that's a locust tree. That's a very hard wood, and they use that when they're small to make fence posts out of it, because it lasts many years.
This is the size of wood they use to build a fire to...
Minute, I'm going to complete here. We just ran out of, we had a equipment malfunction here. The battery went out, and what we're going to finish here is they go through about a truckload of wood a day to burn the sap down. And I'm going to be moving into the sap house, and we're going to have to stay on the outside because I use all this steam you saw earlier. You can see it just pouring out up here. Look at it pouring. That's all the water that's coming, excess water that's coming out of the sap. So I'm going to stop for a second and position myself a little bit differently.
On the ground. They didn't use it, so I don't, you know.
Well,
Hold it. Can you come? Are you busy back there, or can you come out and talk out?
I don't want to talk. Where's Tim?
Tim's out there.
I saw him, but that's why I thought he was
Well, he's taking Brandon around.
The trees and all that kind of stuff.
Well, just let me think of it. What do you want to know?
Okay.
Okay, well, we can tell you the questions ahead of time. That's running now. Blinks, it means it's running.
I positioned myself, besides by the other mechanical malfunction, I had a little bit of a operator malfunction here, having it run when we really weren't supposed to be. Okay, the shack that they've got here is probably about 15 by about 20 foot, and this is the sole purpose of this shack is to make maple syrup. We've got Margaret Lawton here that, she's showing up very good right at the moment. Okay, we're going to have a big problem in here with steam, so we're going to try to explain what's happening as we go. So maybe you can move in and while we've got this thing real quick here, while their steam is down.
Over here.
Okay, right here
Got
is
the holding tank that holds 400
400
gallons of sap. From the holding tank, what happens next?
Goes through the white.
see the white pipe back there?
White
Let me explain here. It goes through the white pipe back into the back end of this evaporator here. It's gravity fed in here. It just goes out with a float, and as it boils away, it adds more water into there, more sap into this tank. This tank is huge. It's probably about 12 foot long, and it's about 2 feet deep. And this is where they do the majority, they evaporate the majority of the water off of it.
It's 3.5 feet wide.
Okay.
The tall stainless steel tank is 8 feet long. The lower front finishing pan is 4 feet long.
Okay, this is the finishing.
This is the finishing pan.
Comes
pan.
in on an
So
automatic
you can
flow.
see how it's, can you get down in there?
Hopefully this will show.
Yeah, it should.
Well, I got a little bit of steam on the
Oh, on the lens?
Now on the lens,
Okay, and
But
then
that's
in the evaporator.
the float, and then here's,
Then it works its way through these 4 divided pans and is drawn off as finished syrup on the other side.
oh, it's getting difficult. I can't see with my glasses right now. Still going.
Yeah, it's still going.
Let me stop it for a second. Glasses off, and we're going to try it again. I don't know why it says 150th of a second. Maybe that's what, 1/500. Okay, here's we're going again. I haven't operated this thing in a while, so I got a little problem. Okay. All right, this is the can that they pour the finished maple syrup in to filter it out. And then they draw it off into 1 gallon, 1 quart, 1/2 gallon jugs and little pint jugs. And I think somebody's coming along to show me what one of these jugs look like. Ah, tripping in there, that's what one of the jugs looks like. And that's where they pour it from. Now, if I can take a close-up and see what the inside of this bucket looks like. Without breaking my neck, let's do a little fade in here. I don't know if it's coming out. This is the float on the other side of the tank that they use to draw the sap, the finished sap off on. Okay. Right here, that stick that's sticking out is a thermometer. At the beginning of the day, they take a temperature of bring the water to boiling, take the temperature.
What is the normal temperature for boiling water, Antoine?
I think it might be 212 degrees Fahrenheit. And then they turn around and put a line 7 degrees above that. And when all the water is boiled out of there, that there's nothing but maple syrup left, it raises up 7 degrees. So at 219 degrees, they can start drawing off maple syrup. In this case, they raise it up a couple degrees above there, making it even richer than that, and then draw off maybe a gallon at one time, and it goes down a couple degrees below that. And then they stop and they boil away more sap. Here's hopefully you can see the big fire that we've got here. It takes a lot of wood and a lot of fire to boil away all this. That furnace, or whatever you want to call it, is about 4 feet long and goes along and takes heat all the way along the back end to the back end of this evaporator. And there's sand and fire brick back there to hold the heat in and distribute the heat all the way back. Most of the heat's right up front here, but it does get all the way back. And last night when I was visiting here, the water was shooting up in the air, boiling up in the air about 6-8 inches, and that was so hot. It may seem like easy work, but there's a lot of work and a lot of preparation to getting the actual finished product of maple syrup. When you have to go and find all this wood from some place to burn it and evaporate the water off of this. And it won't take too long, and that stuff will be just roaring. Okay. I'm going to stop. I was taking this and that it was a 500th of a second. Now I hope that doesn't make any bad pictures now. So let me. Mrs. Bell just asked Mrs. Lawton about making sugar or making candy out of this. Okay. Candy, I think they have to boil an awful lot more off. A lot more water off, and it's very touchy. Hang on a second. Okay. Okay, I'm filming here. I hope you can see the boiling, what I was talking about before as to how high it's boiling. Look at that. only thing you're trying to accomplish there is get rid of the water. You can hear it. Listen to that. Now look at this. Look at the candy. This is a syrup before they pull it off. We got 4 pans here that it works its way all the way over to the other side. They're on their way to pick up syrup from the little bush that we first showed you. We're going to show you here now. I explained that the temperature that you raise it up by using a thermometer is the old-fashioned way of doing it. There's a more scientific way of doing it, and it's with a hydrometer?
Hygrometer.
A hydrometer. This tells exactly what the density of the compound, or whatever you want to call it, I'm not very scientific, of the syrup is anyway. And they put that in there and they tell it whether it is really syrup. They test this when they draw all their syrup off. See, it goes in and it floats. And if it floats at the right point, then they know they've made syrup and it's right.
This I just took out of the finishing pan, and it's not quite syrup yet because it should come right to that red line.
Okay, the red line is down
right there.
There where her little finger is. That's where the line is now. If it floats at that line, that says that it's syrup. And see, it just went just a little bit below that. So they got to boil it some more. So they test this every now and then just to make sure that the temperature and the boiling and everything's right. Now she'll probably pour that back in the pan and let it finish off.
That's right.
See, you don't want to throw it away. How many gallons of syrup do you think you've made so far this year?
Oh, we've made over 100 gallons so
Over
far.
100 gallons. That's a lot of work. Okay, here's the 3 size jugs that they have here. They have a pint, a quart, and a gallon. They actually have a half gallon here too. The cost of the container is added into the price. It's cost about $1 for these containers, and because of the size of them and amount of work with them, the smaller containers end up being a little bit expensive. Now the average gallon of syrup might cost anywhere from $25 all the way up to $40, depending upon where you go to buy it. Now one of the things I want to point out here is they've got locked and sealed caps on this.
This is how it starts.
It starts off like that. Okay. It starts off like that. Then they put the cap on it and they tighten it down and it seals it shut. And once it's sealed shut, it'll stay good for a long period of time. And one of the things that you have to watch out for on this is if you break the seal on it, you're going to have to refrigerate it, or the maple syrup can spoil.
It seals because of the heat.
Yes,
of the syrup when they put it in.
Okay. Did you catch that? Say that again.
The heat of the syrup, when it's put into the jug, sucks down
and seals
the cap
the lid on
seals
tight.
The cap.
Okay, another thing that happens with this, because it's so much sugar in there and it gets so high in content, after you pour the syrup off for a while, you might end up with a solid piece of sugar on the bottom of the jug inside of it. And what they end up doing then is add a little bit of water and boil it, and you've got maple syrup again. Up closer to the front edge of the...
Okay, I'll have to get my badge.
Okay.
Before we had all the thermometers and hydrometers, maple syrup makers used to tell if it was syrup by how much would stick to the bottom of the shovel here. If it made like an apron, it was ready for it to be syrup.
Okay.
If it just runs off, it's not syrup yet.
Okay, now I know that from being down here before that the Lawtons add a little bit of milk onto the syrup as it's boiling away. Why do you do that, Margaret?
It keeps the foam down. If it's foaming, it gets hung up right, and then it doesn't evaporate the same.
Okay.
Stuff.
So it helps.
In order to increase the evaporation, get rid of the water, or still a little bit of milk on it.
And it helps also, they don't have to skim as much. Okay, now see if you can show that apron again. Looks like we got a fairly clear picture for the second. Okay, it's a little bit hard to see here, but you can see the syrup right on across the bottom of that. Yeah. Okay. That's me that's seeing it. I'm shaking like a leaf here, and my hands are getting cold. I'm going to shut it off. This is what happens with home productions. You get the cart before the horse, or the horse before the cart, or whatever it is, and now we're actually at the point now where they brought the sap back from the fields or the trees, and they're dumping it off. And if I can walk up here without falling on my face, you can see all the sap that they just got done gathering. Okay, I've been told I'm supposed to look in the bin.
Oh, I don't know, it's kind of dark, I don't know. How many trees worth is this, Tim?
Oh, I'm not sure how many it was.
Guess.
Okay,
well,
Okay.
How many trees worth is this sap, Tim?
about 100 trees.
Okay, from all day or half a day?
One day's worth from about 100 trees.
Okay.
On a normal day, a good tree will run 2 or 3 gallons of sap.
2 or 3 gallons of sap. Well, how many gallons of sap does it take to make a gallon of syrup?
About 40 on average. It'll be less early in the season and more later in the season.
Okay.
How many trees do you have tapped?
350.
350. That's a lot of taps. Now we had something. You got a question for you about making candy.
Oh, yeah. How do you make candy out of the syrup?
Yeah, it gets heated up higher than where you would stop the syrup. And then it gets about 230 degrees. You take it off the stove, and then it has to be stirred until it changes colors. Then it's poured into molds or do whatever you want to do with it. It has to be done quite fast, so it hardens quick.
Okay. And there's another thing that I've heard. Is there a cream too, or a creamy syrup that you can?
There's maple cream. We've never really done any of that.
That's a lot of work, isn't it? Mostly
Yeah.
for tourists.
We've tried it and it's never came out too good.
Very delicate and very
Well,
difficult to do.
It always ends up hard. It always ends up as candy rather than cream.
Mm.
You don't get
So-
it quite.
So you got a fine line of where to get it from.
Yeah.
Can you think of any other questions we have, Judy?
No, I think that's it.
In 2.5 gallons of sap in one day?
Yeah.
Okay, now what's the temperature that at night that you expect to go down to and come back up to in a day to get a good sap
In
full?
the 20s at night and then warming up into the 40s during the day. It runs best.
How long is your season? When do you do it from until?
Well, I don't know. We started about the 1st of March, and this is late for us right now.
Okay, you just kind of primarily get your normal customers and a little bit of extra, and
Well,
this
it's been
year
a
you got a
cold
big
winter.
surplus.
It's been a cold winter, or cold March.
Right. It was 2 weeks in March where it didn't do anything. You know, usually they'd be your top 2 weeks, and
Okay.
pretty much done by April as far as a good syrup goes.
Okay, the quality of the syrup. When's the best quality?
Oh, it's all been really good this year, but once the trees start to bud, it gets dark.
It gets dark, huh? Then they make pancake syrup out of it, huh?
Yeah,
Goes off to the factories then. Goes off to the factories then. Okay, I think that's all I have right now. We got the real age of mechanization right now. They're pumping the water or the sap out of that tank by the use of this tractor into the tank, the big 400-gallon tank that we saw inside. This is really getting closer to really an efficient operation instead of doing it all by hand. Okay, one of the things that I forgot to mention before, this tank that they have here holds 175 gallons that they go out and pick up in the woods. But the main reason for that covered lid like that on the top with a hole in it is because when they're jostling around in the woods and that, they don't want the sap all bouncing out of it. So they got that in there and they just pour it into the top here and it goes down in the center. You can see the actual pulling the syrup off. I can step back, you can see the spigot's open and they're pouring the syrup down. They'll fill it up into that bucket. And when they've got off what they think that they can pull off at this time before they have to evaporate some more, then they'll dump it right into this. And I think maybe I can see it better in there now this time. I don't know if I had a problem with it before, but this is a funnel cloth that they've got in their filter that takes out all of the impurities or all the solids. The time here on the floats, you can see the syrup coming out of there up in the back evaporator, just slowly coming in there. That's about what they need to keep the level constant over here. And I don't know if you can see the actual syrup or not, but it's gone down quite a bit as far as this boiling and that, so it looks like they're probably going to need to heat it up again.
Stay tuned in a future installment to find out, where does milk come from?